Hungarian and Turkish. Now that's an unexpected duo. To the untrained ear, they might sound surprisingly alike. And honestly, I've seen a lot of comments saying exactly that on my last video, which you should definitely check out if you haven't, and even across the internet. Now, before anyone brings up the old I'll take theory, don't worry, that's not what this is about. That theory has mostly been debunked. But still, when I listen to both languages side by side, I kinda get it. There's something there. As always, though, I'm not here to make the call for you. You get to listen and decide.
Amikor így kérdezik, hogy akkor én mégis hol és honnan és hogyan, és mondom, hogy Pristina, akkor az első kérdés az, hogy az hol van.
Merhabalar, ben Ela Kasap, 1986 Kosova Priştine doğumluyum. Şu anda RTK televizyonda bulunuyoruz. Burada gazeteci olarak görev yapmaktayım.
In most of my videos, I usually focus on phonology when the languages in question are totally unrelated. But in this case, Hungarian and Turkish don't just sound similar, they actually share some surprising grammatical features too. Now, to be clear, these two languages are completely unrelated. Hungarian is Uralic, and Turkish is Turkic, two entirely separate language families. But hey, you know how we like to do things on this channel. We love comparing languages that seem to have no business being compared. So let's jump in, starting with grammar. Both Hungarian and Turkish are what we call agglutinative languages. If you're not familiar with that term, don't worry. It just means you start with a root word and then stack suffixes, and sometimes prefixes, onto it to build bigger words. And when I say bigger, I mean you can sometimes express what would be a whole sentence in English with just one word. Let's take an example in Turkish using the word ev, which means house. You start with ev, house, evlash, house, evlerim, my houses, evlerimde, in my houses, evlerimdan, from my houses. Pretty wild, right? And yes, it can get even longer than that. Now, Hungarian works the same way. So naturally, that shared structure gives both languages a similar rhythm and flow. Here's how you say from my houses in both languages. Now, building off the idea of agglutination, another big similarity is the use of suffixes. In Turkish, it's suffixes only. You'll never say a prefix. In Hungarian, there are a few prefixes, mostly used with verbs, but the language still leans heavily on suffixes just like Turkish. And then there's cases. Turkish has 6, which already surprises a lot of learners. But Hungarian, 18. Yeah, 18. Every time I hear that, I have to pause and gasp for a second. It never gets easier. Okay, moving on. Both languages also conjugate their verbs based on the subject, which isn't that unusual globally, but it is a contrast with English. In English, most subjects use the same verb form. I go, you go, we go, except for the third person singular like he, she, it goes. In Turkish and Hungarian, every subject has its own verb ending, and that can add to the perception that they sound alike, especially to someone unfamiliar with either language. Now, in terms of what I'd call audible grammar, that pretty much covers the main surface level similarities, what you can hear just by listening. But for people who like to dig deeper into writing or formal grammar studies, there's a whole other layer of similarities that's just as fascinating. Let's start with vowel harmony. You could argue this is audible, after all, it does affect how words sound, but for someone who's never heard of it, it probably goes unnoticed. So here's the deal. Vowel harmony is when the vowels in a word have to match based on certain features. In Turkish, this includes front versus back vowels, and whether the vowels are rounded or unrounded. So if a word starts with a front vowel, then all the suffixes that follow will also use front vowels. This keeps the word flowing smoothly, and yes, Hungarian does the same kind of thing. Other structural similarities, there are quite a few, such as no grammatical gender. Articles are optional, especially in Hungarian, where you can drop them depending on context, and they both have flexible word order. Both languages allow you to shift word placement for emphasis, which adds a natural rhythm, but also some freedom when speaking or writing. Alright, now let's move into phonology, where a lot of the audible similarities between Hungarian and Turkish really start to shine. First up, both languages are syllable timed. This means that every syllable in a word is pronounced with roughly the same duration, no matter where the stress falls. It creates a steady, almost rhythmic pacing, very different from English, which is stress timed. There are also no diphthongs. Both Hungarian and Turkish stick to pure vowel sounds, meaning each vowel is pronounced cleanly and separately, without sliding from one to another like you'd hear in English words like coin or loud. Now, let's take a look at their vowel systems. As you can see, they have very similar vowel inventories. Not 100% the same, but they share a lot. One important difference, though, is that Hungarian distinguishes vowel length. Turkish doesn't do this consistently. They do have vowel lengtheners, like this letter I'm about to put on the screen here, but they don't distinguish between short and long vowels. Still, the overlap in vowel types makes a strong case for why they might sound alike. They also share a lot of the same consonants. Sure, there are some differences here and there. Hungarian has a few consonants that Turkish doesn't, and vice versa, but the overall sound palette is surprisingly close. That alone can make the two languages feel similar. Now, there's one more thing that I think plays a subtle but very, very important role in making them seem similar, and that is loanwords. Alright, here's a quick bit of history. The Ottoman Empire occupied Hungary for over 150 years, and during that time, Turkish became the language of administration. As you might expect, a lot of Turkish vocabulary made its way into Hungarian daily life. Today, it's estimated that about 9.5% of Hungarian loanwords come from Turkish. That might not sound massive, but the impact is definitely noticeable. And here's a sentence that's often brought up when people want to show how quote unquote related the two languages supposedly are. They both mean, I have many small apples in my pocket. Now, to someone who doesn't speak either language, this might seem like hard proof that they're related. After all, the words sound shockingly similar, and the sentence structure lines up perfectly. But here's the catch. The words zseb, shuk, kichi, and alma in Hungarian are all loanwords of Turkic origin. They came into the language through centuries of contact, some from the Ottoman era and others even earlier. So rather than proving a genetic relationship, this sentence actually shows the lasting influence Turkish had on Hungarian. Even before the Ottoman Empire, Turkic and Uralic tribes interacted on the steppes of Central Asia, which gave both sides time to trade words, ideas, and cultural practices. That long intertwined history is one of the main reasons why some linguists used to believe in the Altaic theory. So, what's my conclusion? Well, yeah, I do think Hungarian and Turkish actually do kind of sound similar, but definitely not like enough for me to confuse both of them, and especially not enough for me to think that they're related. And that misconception is still floating around, and I think it sticks for a few reasons. First, there's the legacy of the Altaic theory, a now mostly debunked idea that languages like Turkish, Hungarian, Mongolic, and others are all part of a single superfamily. Even though most modern linguists have moved on, many speakers in both countries still support it, so it keeps the idea alive in popular culture. Second, you've got sentences like the apple and pocket one, where shared loanwords and similar structures make it look like the languages are mutually intelligible, when in reality, they're not. Third, this one's interesting, and in my opinion, I think it could definitely be plausible. For people who don't speak either language, especially Indo European language speakers, Hungarian and Turkish just sound different. Most Indo European languages follow similar rules, so when something breaks those patterns, like vowel harmony, agglutination, or syllable timing, it kind of gets lumped in together in our brains as foreign sounding. It's kind of like, I don't understand either of these, therefore they must be similar. And to be fair, agglutination isn't common in Indo European languages, aside from rare cases like Armenian. Also, it doesn't help that Hungary and at least part of Turkey, the major part of Turkey, are both situated in Europe, so a lot of Europeans have some sort of exposure to the languages. Finally, the most important reason they sound alike is that they do share real features, like I mentioned before: agglutination, vowel harmony, syllable timing. So while they're not genetically related, the surface level similarities are enough to make some people pause and say, these actually kind of sound similar. And that's a wrap on this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it because honestly, it was really fun for me to compare these two fascinating but very different languages. As always, keep in mind everything I mentioned here has a degree of subjectivity. You might agree, you might not, and that's totally okay. So if you have thoughts, theories, or personal experiences with Hungarian or Turkish, drop them in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys have to say. I absolutely loved the discussions in the last video, and I'd love to keep that going here too. I try to reply to as many comments as I can, and I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who watched and supported the last video. It seriously blew up, and I appreciate every single one of you. I've got more language comparisons on the way, and some really cool niche linguistic topics coming your way soon. So if you've got ideas for what I should cover next, please let me know. And if you haven't already, go check out my Norwegian versus Turkish video, and of course, if you enjoyed this one, drop a like, subscribe, and join the Discord. It's an active community full of people who love languages and linguistics just as much as you do. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.